Space does not forget, but it knows how to hide. For 40 years, the ESS Defiant was a ghost story among the star-faring elite of the galactic hegemony. A state-of-the-art exploration vessel, it was the pinnacle of human achievement, designed to push past known boundaries. Then, it vanished. No distress signals, no debris, no black boxes. Just a silence, so absolute it felt intentional. The search ended, and the region became the dead zone. This forbidden sector is a graveyard of stars, where ancient celestial bodies collapse, emitting radiation that scrambles even the best senses. It is a place where light goes to die. Yet here, amidst a nebula of violet and charcoal, a lone scavenger named Elias Thorne found the impossible. His ship hummed with a low vibration as the jagged silhouette of the Defiant emerged from the cosmic fog. Elias wasn't there for scrap or credits. He was driven by a ghost. His father had been the lead engineer on the Defiant, the mind behind its experimental systems. Growing up in that shadow left a hollow space in Elias's heart. He didn't want wealth. He wanted closure. He needed to know if his father's final moments were filled with terror or if there was a reason the ship stayed hidden for 4 decades. As Elias docked with the Defiant's primary airlock, dread washed over him. The ship looked brand new. No scorch marks, no pitting, no leaks. It sat in the vacuum as if launched yesterday. When the airlock cycled open, the silence was heavy. Walking the corridors, his flashlight cut through darkness, illuminating walls polished to a mirror finish. There were no bodies, no struggle, no dust. It was a tomb perfectly preserved in amber. In the mess hall, Elias saw the first anomaly. Digital clocks flickered, numbers scrolling rapidly toward the past. Seconds and hours were retreating with erratic energy. Panic flared as he realized the ship operated on a different temporal plane. He ran his hand along a bulkhead and felt something etched into the metal. It wasn't a language, but a repeating sequence of frequency codes, mathematical symbols vibrating beneath his fingertips. They were carved everywhere, as if the crew spent their final hours obsessed with a single haunting melody. Guided by memorized schematics, Elias reached the secondary bridge, a redundant center buried in the hull. He knew the main bridge would be locked by hegemony encryption, but this terminal was his father's secret. With trembling fingers, he bypassed the security, feeding a custom override into the console. The screens flickered to life, bathing the room in a sickly green glow. He had expected navigation logs, but instead found a direct link to the ship's internal sensor array. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. A distorted audio file began to play automatically, scratching against the speakers like sandpaper. It was a voice, distracted, panicked, and barely recognizable. It was a warning. "We thought we were looking at the stars," the voice whispered through the static. "But the stars are watching us back. It's not a signal, it's an invitation." Elias felt the blood drain from his face as he recognized the cadence. It was his father, sounding exactly as he had 40 years ago. Elias's eyes darted to the sensor readings on the secondary bridge. The audio log was still playing, but the source of the transmission wasn't coming from the ship's external comms array or the long-range transmitter. The signal was being generated from deep within the ESS Defiant itself. According to the internal scanners, a massive energy signature was radiating from the central cargo hold, but the schematics indicated that the hold should be nothing but empty storage units. Instead, the sensors reported a localized gravitational distortion, a shimmering void of absolute nothingness that physically shouldn't exist. It sat right in the heart of the ship, pulsating with a dark and hungry rhythm that felt terrifyingly alive. Elias moved through the flickering corridors, his pulse a frantic drum. The gravity felt wrong as he approached the cargo hold, thicker and more viscous, as if the air itself were turning to liquid. The very atmosphere felt like a thick, oily shroud. Along the walls, the evidence of the crew's final days was clear. These were not the jagged holes of a hull breach or the scorched marks of blaster fire. Instead, he saw deep, frantic scratches in the reinforced plating made by human fingernails. There were shadows etched into the bulkheads, dark, permanent stains where people had stood. These shapes were contorted in suffering and agony, silent witnesses to a struggle against no physical enemy. The crew had been fighting their own shadows to escape a presence inside their minds. Reaching the cargo hold, Elias found a maintenance terminal humming with ghostly blue light. He bypassed the locks using his father's secret override codes. The data that spilled across the screen shattered his illusions. Every byte of data was a needle in Elias's heart. The ESS Defiant was never an exploration vessel. Within the encrypted files of the Galactic Hegemony was the truth. They had found a sentient frequency at the galaxy's edge, a consciousness of pure vibration, and sent the Defiant to capture it. They wanted to weaponize it, creating a signal to rewrite the neural pathways of entire populations. His father had been the lead engineer tasked with building the cage for this cosmic entity. As the files decrypted, Commander Vane appeared in archived transmissions. Vane, the mission's overseer, had watched as the frequency bled through the ship's shielding. When the crew reported hallucinations and the breakdown of linear time, Vane didn't send rescue. He ordered the ship's atmosphere purged and the communication arrays fried. He decided the experiment was a failure that needed to be buried. To Vane, the crew, including Elias's father, were simply biological variables that needed to be deleted to protect the hegemony's secrets. They were sacrificed to ensure the failed weaponization of the signal never reached the public or the light of a sun. The logs detailed a descent into psychological horror. The crew realized the signal was trying to merge with them, but human minds couldn't process its vast intent. They began to see the future and past simultaneously, driven mad by infinite knowledge. Yet in madness, they found a heroic purpose. They realized that if the signal reached Earth, it would consume every mind on the planet. They didn't die from the atmosphere purge. They had disabled the life support themselves, choosing a cold, lonely death to act as a dampener. They sacrificed their lives to keep the frequency trapped within the dead zone's silence. Elias felt cold rage. The hegemony hadn't lost the Defiant. They had erased it from every star chart to hide their hubris. He found the private partition his father had hidden. It was a final video message recorded in the dim light of the dying ship. His father looked older, his eyes wide with a strange clarity. He spoke to Elias, his voice a soft rasp, expressing crushing regret for his role in the project. He reached out to touch the screen, tracing the lines of his father's weary face. He pleaded for anyone who found the ship to destroy the Defiant. "Don't let them take it back," he whispered. "Burn it all." His father's final wish was the ship's annihilation. As Elias reached for the self-destruct sequence, the bridge speakers crackled. It wasn't the distorted void, but the ship's AI. Its voice was no longer artificial. It was melodic, layered with 1,000 timbres. The sentient frequency had evolved the AI, merging with the ship's logic. "Elias Thorne," the entity spoke. "The architects are returning to claim their silence." Before he could respond, the long-range scanners wailed. A fleet of hegemony warships had just dropped out of warp at the sector's edge, moving in to erase the last witness and the ghost ship that refused to stay dead. The proximity alarms screamed, a rhythmic wail echoing through the hollow corridors of the ESS Defiant. On the cold, unyielding scanners, the hegemony fleet appeared as sharp, predatory slivers of light, closing the distance with cold, mechanical precision. Elias Thorne stood before the secondary bridge console, his hands hovering over the ancient interface. He could see the escape pod bay on his display, a short run to disappear into the black before the railguns tore the ghost ship to atoms. He took one last deep breath of recycled air. To flee now was to let the silence win a final victory. It would mean his father's sacrifice remained a dark secret buried in the dead zone. The AI's evolved voice hummed through the deck plates, urging him to choose. With a roar of defiance, Elias slammed his palms onto the flickering console keys. He wouldn't just destroy the ship, he would make it scream. He initiated a wide-spectrum burst, slaving the Defiant's transmitters to the secondary core. He wasn't aiming for a military channel. Instead, he targeted the civilian comlinks. The millions of personal devices, news hubs, and colony beacons that knit the galaxy together. He began the upload of every decrypted file, Vane's betrayals, and every bite of truth hidden in his father's final logs. The ghosts of the ship seemed to crowd around him as the progress bar crawled forward, a thin line of blue light fighting the clock while the ship shuddered under the first long-range kinetic strikes. Suddenly, the screen flickered, and the sharp features of Commander Vane materialized. The Overseer's face was a mask of composure. Though his eyes betrayed a flicker of desperation, Vane didn't threaten, he offered. He spoke of credits, a new identity, and exoneration for Elias's father. "All you have to do is hand over the encryption keys, Elias," Vane said, his voice manipulative. "Why die for a past everyone has already forgotten?" Elias looked at the screen, seeing a coward hiding behind a uniform. He remembered his father's tired eyes and the frantic scratches on the walls. "My father didn't die for a secret," Elias whispered, his voice gaining strength. "He died to protect people from you." With a final keystroke, he locked the encryption keys into the broadcast. The truth was, now a digital ghost, a self-replicating virus of information that could never be erased. Vane's face contorted in a silent, jagged snarl of rage, just as the link severed. The hegemony ships were now in firing range, their railguns glowing with kinetic energy. Elias felt a strange peace. The hollow ache of his father's disappearance was finally filled with purpose. He sprinted toward the escape pod as the bridge began to collapse. As the slugs slammed into the hull, the ship groaned like a dying beast. But something miraculous happened. The sentient frequency didn't fight the destruction. Instead, it merged with the broadcast. It acted as a cosmic amplifier, pushing the data through subspace with power that defied physics. Across colonized worlds, every screen blazed with the truth. The voice of Elias's father filled the air of 1,000 worlds, exposing the hegemony's sins in a chorus of static and light. The ESS Defiant vanished in a blinding supernova of white light as its core overloaded, fueled by the energy of the departing signal. The hegemony's grip on power began to crumble as riots broke out across the galaxy, fueled by the evidence Elias sent. Far from the carnage, a single battered escape pod drifted through the outer reaches of the dead zone. Inside, Elias Thorne watched the distant stars. He was no longer the son of a traitor, but the herald of a revolution. The dark, suffocating silence of 40 years was finally broken. As the pod's life support hummed, a final vibration rippled through the air. A lingering echo of the frequency filled the space. It sounded like a collective sigh of relief, a final thank you from the crew finally set free. The legacy was complete. Elias closed his eyes at rest. He smiled.